Everybody, welcome into To The Point. I'm your host, Noah Warren. Hope you're doing well on this Monday. A lot to dive into today. We are fresh off the Masters. We are fresh off UFC 287 this weekend in beautiful Miami. The NBA regular season is over. The NHL regular season will be done in 5 days. Lots of things happening there. There's more stuff I probably am missing that I'm not going to be able to get into. Tons of baseball. Tampa Bay Rays are still undefeated. The Blue Jays are playing wild games. Their pitching sucks, but they still find a way to win. Shohei Ohtani. Padres are hot. Juan Soto. So much to chat about. But I hope you all had a great weekend to start off. I did. It was Easter weekend, and I didn't do anything Easter related, which might be why it was a good weekend. That might be the reason. I'm not sure. And, it was good. I watched a lot of golf, watched a lot of fighting. And, yeah, I hope you guys all enjoyed a good Easter. But glad to be back with you all today. And let's start with the Masters. It was a weird weekend at Augusta National. I can't say it was one of my favorite Masters tournaments because there wasn't a whole lot of drama. And honestly, what happened Friday/Thursday were more interesting days to me than Saturday and Sunday. I watched a lot of golf and Sunday when there wasn't rain days. And of course, the scenes last night when the winner was walking up 18, it's all fantastic. But we never felt like there was a race. It never was a battle at one time where you had 2-3 guys in it. Hovland made a late surge on the 18th hole in the third round, but he fell off, and then you had guys kind of climb the ranks. But, the tournament finishes with Jon Rahm winning his first green jacket, but he wins the event by 4 strokes. That's not exactly tension. Not a lot of drama there. He had all kinds of things to play with. He pars the 18th hole. Koepka misses the putt for outright second. Could have had the outright second position. Ultimately, he misses it. So he finishes tied for second. But it was set in stone. From about the 14th hole, you knew that Jon Rahm was going to win the tournament. He was in complete control, and he played some masterful golf down the stretch. The best thing from him is that he controlled his emotions. He's a guy that can get really angry. He's a guy that can lose his sense, lose his intelligence a little bit because he plays with emotion, because he plays with anger, and he really didn't. He hit his drives perfectly. He didn't try to overbear the course. He took his birdies when they were there, but he took his pars because he knew he could. And he was in a position where he got a lead and he felt comfortable. And Brooks Koepka, who was playing with him in the last group, never had really any pressure on him because he just didn't have it. He said this to Amanda Renner after the tournament on Sunday, where he goes, it was a mediocre day for me. That's fair. It might have been a below average day for Brooks Koepka, where his driver wasn't putting him in great situations. His putter was letting him down. And it brought me back, honestly, to the full swing moment where he talks, and if you haven't seen it, it's on Netflix, he talks about how he lost confidence in himself, how he didn't trust himself to make a putt. And we saw early in the tournament, he was knocking them down. But as we got later and later, he couldn't find it. And he seemed positive. He seemed happy that he was competitive, that he finished in second, and he should be. Koepka at one point was dominant in this tournament, and finishing second is no small feat. But ultimately, you finish second. I know for Brooks Koepka, he's looking at that as a failure. The only things he cares about are major championships. He's in LIV. He's going to make money regardless of how he finishes. So now his legacy is about winning majors, about adding to that. He's got 2 PGA championships. He's got 2 U.S. Opens. He hasn't won Augusta. He hasn't won the Open Championship. So to me, those two majors would mean more to Brooks than the other two. Because you want to be able to finish the calendar Grand Slam. You want to win all four. Just like Rory McIlroy's trying to win Augusta. And he can't find a way to do it, but that's what really means a lot to him. So the Friday feel of the rain, the wind, and just the crappy weather where a tree fell in 17 where it really could have hurt people and they had to pause play and then they rejoin, then pause again. That was happening. The players playing in horrible conditions on Saturday where it was pouring rain, and eventually at about 4:15 in the afternoon, they said, okay, that's enough. We can't do this anymore. The golf sucks. The conditions are terrible. We think we have a clear day tomorrow. Let's see what we can do. And ultimately worked out. So that ultimately, the golf and how the course was so tough and how guys played was more compelling to me than the eventual winner or Jon Rahm versus Brooks Koepka or Liv versus the PGA Tour. I got a number of things wrong in this Masters. I predicted Jon Rahm to miss the cut. Openly admit that. I said that on Tuesday on the show. I was wrong. He won the tournament. He was playing pretty horrible coming in. He played great January, February. Since then, he hadn't done a thing. But he comes into the Masters, he finds his game, and he never let go. He never let his foot off the gas tank. He was always in contention, and he never had about a 3 to 4 hole stretch where you look at him going, what the hell are you thinking? What was your thought process there? Why were you trying that shot? It was just complete composure. He was dialed in, and there was no concerns. Every other player had 3 to 4 hole stretches where you're like, what are you doing? Brooks shanking it to the trees. Morikawa trying to go over on 14 on the par 5, trying to get it, trying to put it over, get it onto the green over the ridge. He gets stuck in the bunker. He ends up bogeying the hole. Certain things like that can kill you. And Rahm didn't allow himself to be in that position, which he deserves credit for that because it's a tough-ass golf course and you're playing for a whole lot of money. Jon Rahm, it's early April. We're not at the midway point of April yet. He's already made $13 million this year in earnings. Earnings playing golf. That's not counting his sponsors, his endorsements. Now he's the second Spanish golfer ever to win 2 majors. And he's won the U.S. Open and he's won the Masters. To me, the two most important. The two most prestigious majors he has on his resume. And he's in his early 20s. He's the best golfer in the world. Simple as that. Jon Rahm is the best golfer in the world. He wins all the big events, him and Scottie Scheffler. He didn't win a major last year. The first major this year, he finds a way to do it. I think he had a disappointing year last year. He admitted that. And we're in April, and he's already doing this. He's already won 2 elevated tour events, and he's won the Masters, the first major of the season. Doesn't get much better than that. What he's done, what he's put on his resume. And to me, just as impressive, his demeanor change. He's not snapping like he used to when he's finishes T10. He accepts it. He moves on to the next week, and it doesn't affect his play. He plays well. He has a confidence. He sticks to his game plan, and it doesn't deviate. I love what he's doing out there. He looks so composed, so ready. Attacks the golf course when needed to, and his putting is at a superb level, the best it's ever been at. Another huge surprise was Phil Mickelson. Phil Mickelson finished tied for second. He shot 8 under par for the tournament. He shot 6 under in the final round yesterday, playing with Jordan Spieth, who also played great. Spieth shot 5 under. Mickelson shot 6 under. I didn't see this coming. I didn't think he'd make the cut. And ultimately, Phil Tiger, and Freddie Couples all make the cut. Those three guys make the cut, yet Corey Connors, Svensson, Mike Weir, they all missed the cut, the Canadians. Mac Hughes made it, but wasn't in it whatsoever. Field goes 8 under par. His putting looked really good. Huge fist pump on 18. They still love him there. They love him there. He's won the PGA. He's won the Open Championship. He can go back to those events. He'll be playing at the majors, and he should, the way he looked. He's lost a ton of weight. He looks like a different person, but he can still roll the rock. He still has that confidence. He still has that swagger, that the Phil Mickelson that you see. He still got it. And he might be on live, and I don't care. I'm not going to watch any of the golf tournaments. I'll watch Hilton Head this weekend, elevated event. It's Hilton Head, South Carolina. It's one of my favorite courses on tour. I'll watch the hell out of that. I'm not watching live, but what I do know, that these guys can still play. Phil Mickelson finishes T2 at a major with Brooks Koepka, who's also playing on the live tour. Patrick Reed finishes tied for 4th. He goes 7 under for the tournament. He loves playing at Augusta. Sure, yes, Bubba Watson, Sergio Garcia, a bunch of other guys missed the cut, Kevin Na. But you have 3 live guys in the top 10. That's pretty impressive. That's a statement in its own right to the rest of the PGA Tour that we still got it. Cam Smith, the most disappointing of the live guys, he finished 4 over for the tournament. He was never in it. They didn't show a shot he took yesterday. He was playing back to front. He was a non-starter. That doesn't mean he won't be good at the PGA, or that doesn't mean he won't be good at the Open Championship, which he won last year. Still one of the best putters in the game, if you ask me. He just didn't have it this week. But these live guys, Koepka looked really good. Didn't close, but he looked good. Cameron Smith, I know, can still putt. I don't expect Phil Mickelson to win many games, to win another major, sorry. He's 52 years old. He had a great week. I find that hard to believe. I could be wrong, but I don't see that happening. But could Koepka, could Cam Smith, could Dustin Johnson, who had a horrible week? Maybe, yeah. Quite possibly, they could find their way to winning that event. After watching the Masters, seeing these individual live guys play, I'm about a 33% chance that a member of the live tour wins a major this year. Which, oddly enough, there's 3 majors, so I give it a third of a chance. Brooks looked good. Cam Smith didn't, but I know he can be. I saw it less than a year ago. There's a lot of old guys on the live tour never going to. Charles Schwartzel's never going to win another major. Bubba Watson's never winning. Sergio's never winning another major. But there's certain guys on there. Joaquin Niemann, he had a good Masters. The dude can putt. He's confident. He's a really good golfer. He won at Riviera before he left the PGA Tour. They have some good guys over there, certainly. A lot of old guys that were on the back nine of their career that aren't going to win anything in the PGA Tour, miss cuts, but they still have some competency, certainly. And, Phil Mickelson's the oldest person ever to finish top 5 at the Masters. He's 52 years old. He's won a major at 50. He makes a top 5 at 52. Staggering. I mean, he is one of the best golfers ever, don't get me wrong. But to see it after all he's been through and the controversy and, the gambling problems and everything, whew. I didn't expect to see it again. I didn't expect to see Phil Mickelson on a Sunday, them showing his shots. They had to. Other surprises. Victor Hovland was in it for a while. Cameron Young, they both finished tied for 7th. I like Cameron Young. Cameron Young has a little bit of growing up to do. He reminds me of Jon Rahm a few years ago, where he can bomb the golf ball, but he gets extremely frustrated. And I think it affects his play on the course. He focuses too much on the shot that he just missed and not thinking about the next opportunity, the next hole, the par that he got instead of getting a bogey. He needs to learn a little more about that. But to me, Cameron Young can be a major winner because he's a really talented guy. Spieth finishes tied for fourth. That's a good result for Jordan Spieth. Jordan Spieth, he's a very interesting golfer because he is hard. He's so hard in his caddy. He's constantly talking. He's a pain in the ass, certainly, I think, to deal with. But he's still damn good when he wants to be. If he makes that putt on 18, he's tied with Phil and Brooks for second place at Augusta. But he played well. He's going into a tournament this weekend, an elevated event. He's won at Hilton Head recently. He knows the course. He knows he can win here. This is where he got back on the map, really, playing at this event. I wouldn't rule out Jordan Spieth. I think the PGA Championship of the majors remaining give him the best chance to win. The Open Championship, the U.S. Open are both more tough tracks. And it's easier with the fairways and the roughs at the PGA. You look at the U.S. Open, for a guy like Jordan Spieth who his driver can let him down at times, and if you put that in the rough, you're not going to win because you need to have Bryson DeChambeau muscles to get it out of there, or you're going to be bogeying doubles, and before you know it, you're out of it. It's a low score wins that tournament. That's just not his design. But could Jordan Spieth have another good major and win the PGA? Yeah, sure, certainly. He looked good. He's had a good season. He's erratic and he's at times so interesting, but at the same time, he's still one of the best golfers in the world, and you have to respect him for that, 100%. Through the feel of it all, Jon Rahm, the Koepka, the aftermath of the Rory McIlroy 2 days is going to be interesting to watch. It's well documented. Rory McIlroy has won every major outside of the Masters. He's got 4 majors to his name. He hasn't won a major in 8 years, but he is one of the best golfers on the planet. But this course has not been kind to Rory McIlroy. He finished outright second last year, but he missed the cut the year before. He's never really gotten close to winning because Scheffler beat him by 3 strokes in the 2022 Masters. And yet in this year, he misses the cut. Had no chance of winning, and you're left looking and saying, where are we going here? Where does Rory McIlroy go? Because to me, the reason he hasn't won a major in the past 8 years is because every major season starts in Augusta. And this is just me playing amateur psychologist. When he doesn't win Augusta, his mind can't get over the fact that he didn't win it. His mind can't get over the fact that I didn't check that one off the bucket list. To its ultimate goal, and now I'm left looking at the PGA, I'm left looking at the US Open, at the Open Championship, and it doesn't matter because I didn't win the one I need to win. I want to win. Yes, he wants to win these next majors, but it's in the back of his mind. It's clearly taking up so much space in the old cranium that it's almost all-encompassing. He can't get over it. And it's tough to see. McIlroy has the Masters shield like Koepka had it with full swing when it came to his putting stroke. Rory gets to that course and he's played it so many times, but he still hasn't figured out how to master it. He still hasn't figured out the best way to approach the course. He's never played well on a Thursday. He never puts himself in a position to be in contention, to not play from behind, to not play dangerous, to not play reckless. And then with that style, you either make up ground but don't win, or you take a lot of chances. Your second round's like your first round, and you miss the cut. And that is his story at Augusta National. And what I bet on Rory to win on futures bet to win the Masters in January. Might have been earlier than that. And yeah, that money's flushed. Didn't even make the cut. I'm just starting to believe he's never going to win this event. Rory McIlroy will still be regarded as one of the best golfers of his generation. But he will be a guy that doesn't have a green jacket. It's a weird tournament. Patrick Reed has a green jacket. Patrick Reed's a good golfer. He's not one of the best golfers in the world. Bubba Watson has 2 green jackets. Bubba Watson. Never got close any other major. Freddie Couples. Of course, there's Jack Nicklaus. There's Tiger Woods. Sergio Garcia has a green jacket. There are weird people that win this event. It's not always the best player in the world. And I'm just, in the back of my mind, I don't know if he'll ever win it. And that may harm him forever. Because I just think it's so... He's already pulled out of the event this weekend in Hilton Head. He withdrew. It's an elevated event. A lot of ranking points, a lot of money on the line. A big event for the PGA Tour. 27 of the top 30 golfers in the world are competing. Rory backs out. Hasn't played since Saturday morning. Strange. It's almost as if he needs more time to process that he didn't win it again. That he's got to wait another whole year to get back there and try to overcome the demons. Imagine that. You're sitting there, you know you have an opportunity, and you don't do it. I mean, you think about it. In the NHL, Connor McDavid's looking to win a cup. He needs to match some of the all-time greats. You have to do it this time of year. Jason Tatum and the Celtics, they're trying to win an NBA title after losing last year. He wants to be put into the conversation with the best players in the game. Go win. That is how we rate athletes today. Doesn't matter how good you are. If you don't win a championship, you are not in that conversation. Period. You need to win something. You need to at least have one championship. And to me, for the greats, the point of entry is the Masters. It is that's the symbolism of golf. The statue when you win is a green jacket on your body. Rory doesn't have it. Scottie Scheffler, 26, has it. Jon Rahm, 27, has it. Rory's getting to his late 30s. Still doesn't have that. I'm not saying he's going away from the game of golf anytime soon, but every year you get closer to, can you beat these guys anymore? New crop of players coming. You couldn't beat Sam Bennett, the low amateur. He couldn't beat Victor Hovland at this course. Couldn't beat Patrick Reed, his arch nemesis. Couldn't beat Phil Mickelson, who's 52 years old. We know he can bomb the ball. We know he's one of the most talented guys with driver in his hand. But can you master the course? The Masters is different from other events because it's not just about talent. Sometimes it's about your intelligence on this individual court. And I don't see a whole lot of it from Rory. Maybe lay up here. Don't go for the green. Maybe don't pull driver out on 10 with that tough fade. Maybe we just put it in the fairway. Par the hole. Can you keep it somewhat in the mix on the par threes? Can you put it on the green? Can you have a chance for birdie? How about you chip out of the bunker and out of the thick green instead of putting it? Just a thought. I like Rory, one of the most talented golfers in the world. This is just my thinking. I have nothing to back this up. This is just me looking at the situation. Because he is too damn good to go that long without winning a major. There are some great golfers. Don't get me wrong. There's a ton of them. We're in a great age of golf right now. There's so many talented guys. But you're telling me he goes 8.5 years without winning a major? No. That shouldn't be the case. But when you start every year, think about your day. You start every day and you're on the wrong foot. You don't if you start your day with working out, you don't go work out. You don't have a glass of water. You don't feed the dog. Whatever you got to do to put yourself in a mindset to have a productive day. If you don't do it, you're likely not going to be productive because it's your brain overriding your sense, your ability to have a good day. I can have that. I have that all the time. If I don't do something, my mindset changes. My attitude gets a little more negative. I'm not as chipper. I want to be productive, but I feel like the day's a complete wash. I can't wait to get to the next one. And before you know it, you're pissed off and you're sitting there like, God, what is this day for? I think that's how he views majors. And maybe the way for him to eventually get peace or to have a better showing at Augusta is to win one of the next 3 majors. To get that burden off of him and to play Augusta National with a little more freedom. To still have that in the back of his mind, knowing I got the pressure to close the deal here. But hey, I've already got 5 majors. I got 5 majors. I'm in the Golf Hall of Fame. I'm one of the best golfers of all time. I've changed the PGA Tour. I make lots of money. I'm doing all right in life. But clearly, I think there's something missing. And Rory and his team, and if he's working with mental doctors, coaches, something to get over that, I think needs to be talked about, needs to be broached in the not too distant future. Other golf news: Will Zalatoris, otherwise known as Bill Zalatoris, as I like to call him, he went on Twitter today, said he had back surgery last week. He is done for the season. He's had multiple back problems. He's had different surgeries. He's had different doctors look at him. But he's a young guy. To have a back surgery this young, he should make a full recovery, but he'll miss the next 3 majors, miss the entire summer. This is a big deal, certainly. He wasn't having a good season. He said he was playing in pain. He was living with pain, just getting up every day. So clearly this was needed. My experience, you got back problems, you're going to have them. Have them forever. They don't go away. Funny story. When I was 18, I was having some drinks. Stupid. Funny, I'm smarter now than I was then. It's hard to believe. But I was dared I was told I wouldn't be willing to go for a swim late at night. So at 1, 2 in the morning. And my pride was like, okay, I'll go for a swim. I don't care. Not knowing that there was a 8-foot bank where I was where I was. Thought you just ran into the water. I ran off the bank right on my back. My back hasn't been the same since. It's not terrible, but I'll tell you, it's not great. Got to go to the chiropractor, do different things. And I'm not a professional athlete. I'm not doing what Bill Zalatoris does every day with the torque, that he puts on when he hits driver. So I hope he can find it. We joke on the podcast that we call him Whiskey Mitts because he's one of the ugliest putters in the game. That's not an overreaction. He is one of the worst in the game. It's an ugly stroke. He doesn't look. It was just. I hope he can feel better. Hopefully this time off can help heal him, because he is a prospect. He is a guy that has, his iron shots, him with driver. If he could figure out his putting, he could be one of the best golfers in the world. He's already had really high finishes at majors despite his putting being some of the ugliest on tour. So his body heals up. If he finds his putting, he very well could be a major champion someday. But good luck to Bill Zalatoris. It was a good Masters weekend. Not one of the most entertaining Masters ever, but there were a lot of storylines, a lot of interesting developments. Jon Rahm, the best golfer in the world, wins it. Only fitting. Brooks Koepka seemingly is back. Phil Mickelson makes a surge at 52. Jordan Spieth had a great event. Nothing you can complain about. Good golf, interesting weather. They battled through it and they finished the tournament on a Sunday, which is fantastic. Also this weekend, Saturday night, we had a UFC pay-per-view. Live in Miami at the Miami Dade Arena. Used to be FTX Arena, but that company shit the bed. If you invested in cryptocurrency or Bitcoin, you're probably screwing the pooch right now because you're up shit creek without a paddle. But we'll leave that for Tom Brady and other celebrities who are trying to sue to get their money back. Good luck with that. But we had an event at the newly named Miami Heat Arena, UFC 287. And what a fun night of fights. Another really solid pay-per-view put on by the UFC. The main event featured Izzy Adesanya and Alex Pereira. This was technically their fourth fight. The first two coming in kickboxing, where Pereira won those two. Izzy then went on to MMA, the UFC, where he's one of the most dominant fighters in the world. Beat Robert Whittaker twice, meet Marvin Vettori twice, beat Jared Cannonier, has beaten Paulo Costa. He's a unique fighter. He's a warrior. He fights everybody. And in November, he fought Alex Pereira. He was winning the fight 3-1 until the fifth round, where Pereira caught him under the chin. And that's all it took. Pereira landed some shots. Izzy started to buckle, and the ref stopped the fight. Pereira became the middleweight champion of the world. 3-0 against Izzy. And Izzy, defending the championship so many times, got an immediate rematch. So Saturday night, these two faced off for the fourth time, and it was fun. Both guys throwing bombs. You saw Izzy trying to go for the wrestling a little bit, but he was okay in the stand-up. Second round, about 50 seconds left in the round, Pereira is coming hard against Izzy, putting up against the cage. But Izzy throws a beautiful combination, a right over the top, and Pereira drops. Completely out, drops like a sack of potatoes, and Israel Adesanya is the middleweight champion of the world once again. Huge celebration with bow and arrows into Pereira while he's on the ground passed out. mocking Pereira's child, who made fun of Izzy for being knocked out in their previous fight. And he gave a great promo, talk about overcoming, talk about him being different. And to his credit, he is. Izzy is one of the best fighters in UFC history. Truly. The middleweight division, you think of Anderson Silva, you think of George St. Pierre won the title late in his career. Michael Bisping was fantastic. But Israel Adesanya fights everybody. He doesn't take a long layoff between fights. He takes on everybody. He may not always have an entertaining fight, but he wins them, and that's all that matters. But his last number of fights have been entertaining. This Pereira fight, a huge knockout. He lost to Pereira, but he overcame it. He knocked out Robert Whittaker. Robert Whittaker will go down as a great UFC fighter. He can't beat Izzy. It's a bad stylistic matchup, and he's 0-2 against him. And Robert Whittaker hasn't lost to anybody else but Izzy. That tells you how good the two guys are in this era. But Israel Adesanya knocks out Alex Pereira, doing something I don't think anybody expected. I did expect Izzy to win the fight by decision. I didn't see a path where Pereira was going to be knocked out. He's a huge puncher. He's going for that, and that he had a better chin. But Izzy just came with the fireworks. He came with dynamite in those hands, and he knocked him out. Resetting the clock, regaining his throne as the king of the middleweight division. So it was an awesome fight, and now the thought is, well, where do we go from here? Because the middleweight division has been Izzy's for a long time, and he's owned it. I mentioned he's beaten Jared Cannonier. He's beaten Paulo Costa. He's beaten Marvin Vettori. So you need a fight that makes sense. You can't just book any fight. You don't want to have retreads. You want to have something fresh. So as I pull up these UFC rankings, we'll pull up the middleweight rankings for you all. So Izzy's the champion. Pereira, number 1 currently. You have Robert Whittaker, number 2, but I mentioned he's beaten him twice. You're likely not going to do that again. Beaten Vettori twice. Beaten Cannonier. Beaten Costa. Number 6, you have Dricus du Plessis. Israel talked after the fight how he wants to beat up Dricus du Plessis. He said he wants Dricus to keep winning his fights so he could bring him and drag his carcass across South Africa. These two have beef because Dricus said that, Izzy basically said that Dricus moved to South Africa when he was a young boy, and he that's where his nationality is South African. That's where he's from. Izzy is African, but he's from Nigeria originally, but he moved to New Zealand when he was the same age. So Dricus basically said, I'm more of an African than Izzy is, and these two have beef. That is a fight that would make sense because we haven't seen it. Dricus is number 6. He just beat Derek Brunson, who's number 8. So they might want to put Dricus up against Cannonier or Vettori or maybe even Robert Whittaker in his next fight to earn a title opportunity. But I see the UFC as 2 different options. I guess 3 different options. You can go Izzy versus Dricus, which I think is a little rushed. I think Izzy will win that fight easily. I don't think Dricus is ready for that fight. I think he needs a tougher test, whether it's against Robert Whittaker, whether it's against Jared Cannonier, who doesn't have a fight right now. He needs another really solid opponent to prove that he's worthy, because you can book that fight, but I don't think it's going to be a very competitive fight, and I think Izzy wins it pretty easily. So I don't view that as an option. You can go Israel Adesanya versus Alex Pereira 3. Pereira didn't defend his title, so he's not technically owed a rematch. But the fights have sold well. The fights have been good. We've seen 2 finishes in both fights, so that's something I think the UFC can sell. The fans will buy into more, is seeing knockouts. So there's that about it. I don't think it's the best option. Dana White mentioned after the fight that he believes Alex Pereira is going to move up to 205, move up to light heavyweight, which he probably should because he has to cut massive amounts of weight to get to 185. I don't think it's easy for him to do that, but it's an option if the UFC can't find something else because these two have history. There's a rivalry there. I think the fight would sell. That's option number 1. Option number 2 is Israel Adesanya versus Jan Blachowicz. Jan Blachowicz is currently in the light heavyweight division. He's a former light heavyweight champion. But way back when, Israel fought Jan Blachowicz at 205 pounds for the light heavyweight title. Israel is trying to win the light heavyweight and the middleweight championships. Jan Blachowicz beat Izzy, giving him his first loss in the UFC. Grappled him, got him to the ground with his wrestling, and ultimately he beat him by points on the ground, winning rounds 3-5. But it was at 205. Izzy had to move up in weight. In this fight, Blachowicz would have to move down to 185, so it would be a different challenge for him. I don't know if there's a whole lot of people clamoring for this fight, but to me this is something Izzy may want because he lost to him. He may want to avenge the loss. He lost to Pereira. He beat him. He may want to beat Jan Blachowicz. Jan Blachowicz tweeted right after the fight. I think Jan knows. He's likely not going to get an opportunity at 205 anytime soon, maybe ever. Just that division is so murky currently. Who knows where that's going? So not a bad call for him to want to do that. That's an option. The third fight is Israel Adesanya versus Khamzat Chimaev. Khamzat does not. He doesn't. He's beaten Kevin Holland. He beat Gilbert Burns. That was at welterweight, a completely different division. He missed weight against Kevin Holland. But he's a massive prospect, and Dana White wants to push him. They want him to be champion. They believe he's a groundbreaking guy. I think he's a good fighter. But do I think he can be beaten? Absolutely. His fight against Gilbert Burns, that was a gimme decision. He won the fight by not by much. They could have went either way. Gilbert Burns fought great. It was 3 rounds. If it went 5, I'm not sure he wins the fight. But ultimately, he got the win. It would sell because people are interested in Khamzat. He hasn't fought since September. And he won the fight against Kevin Holland in under 3 minutes. So what do you do? If I'm Dana White, I'm probably going with the Khamzat option or Pereira. Blachowicz doesn't really interest me. I don't think it's going to sell that well. I don't think there's enough history there to make the fight interesting. But the fact that Dana didn't come out and say we're going to do a third fight between these two kind of tells me that Pereira wants to move up to 205. He's okay with that decision. That's not going to be the future fight. So you have to go from there. Whitaker, Adesanya 3, no, because Whitaker's best case would have been if Izzy lost his fight and then he could have fought Pereira for the middleweight title. That would have made sense because he beats everybody other than Izzy. He's beaten Vettori. He's going to fight Paulo Costa. He didn't get to fight him. He's beaten Sean Strickland, Derek Brunson. It doesn't matter. He beats everybody in the division other than Izzy. The bottom of that division, Brendan Allen's on the rise. He's got a fight coming up. Jack Hermansson's been losing. Roman Dioluse lost to Marvin Vettori. Kelvin Gastelum beat Chris Curtis Saturday night in an awesome fight before the main card. That was an all-out war. So there isn't a whole lot of options with Izzy winning. It makes things a whole lot more murky. But at the same time, he deserves his respect. He deserves his flowers for what he's done in the UFC. So congrats to Izzy. Pereira for another great fight. And I'm curious to see what Dana White in the UFC does, because lately, Dana just says this is going to be the fight. After Leon Edwards beat Kamaru Usman, it was going to be Edwards versus Colby Covington, no matter what. Doesn't matter if Gilbert Burns wins a fight. Doesn't matter if something happens. Doesn't matter what happens with Bilal Muhammad. Guess what? This is what the fight's going to be. Colby's getting the title shot. Hasn't fought in over a year. Doesn't matter. He's getting the title shot. These other results, you might as well not watch the fight. Doesn't matter. Speaking of that, Gilbert Burns won his second fight of 2023 on Saturday night, defeating Jorge Masvidal in a result everybody expected. Gilbert Burns is a much better fighter than Jorge. So he beat Neil Magny. He's beaten Jorge Masvidal. And now after the fight, he said he wants to be the backup fighter in London for the Colby Covington-Leon Edwards fight in presumably July. Sounds like a July pay-per-view in London. Dana White said he would grant that to Gilbert Burns, said he'd give him his wish. If that's what he wants to do, he can be the backup fighter. You know, the backup fighter is not that appealing. You have to make weight, you have to go through a training camp, and you have a good chance of not fighting. So you just go there, and then you watch two other guys fight for the title. Maybe you get the next shot. I don't know. I'll tell you, Bilal Muhammad should be getting this title shot. He deserves it more than Covington, more than even Gilbert Burns, who's done well. But Gilbert Burns has beaten Jorge Masvidal, who's washed, and Neil Magny, who was ranked 10th in the division at the time. So he's got 2 wins this year, but not against great opponents. And I like Gilbert a lot. But yeah, let's see. He beat, Neil Magny, who's 12 currently. And Masvidal will be out of the rankings because he retired. So you have Usman, who's number 1 currently. You have Covington, who's 2, who will be fighting for the belt. Bilal Muhammad is 4. Chimaev's 3, but really he's not in the weight class anymore, so he's out. Gilbert Burns, Shavkat, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Yeah, I don't know. It's a puzzling thing why Dana White is so steadfast that Colby Covington deserves a third title shot after not winning in his first 2 against Kamaru Usman. But you heard Bilal Muhammad say, clearly I need to do something to prove that I can do something in this weight class to get some respect. Either that or he's going to move down in weight. That's not a bad idea either. If I was him, I would be asking for a fight with Kamaru Usman. The former champion, you go beat the former champ. Usman still is great. He lost to Leon Edwards twice, but again, he's the champion currently. You go beat the former champ. It'd be nice if you could get that fight the same month as the Edwards fight. So you line those 2 up. Maybe they're both in London. Unlikely you could do that. Maybe they're both in July. You have a fight night event, something like that. So you have Usman fighting Bilal Muhammad, and you have Edwards against Colby Covington. And maybe if he wins that fight, Bilal can get the winner. If he beats Usman, he gets to fight Edwards or Covington for the welterweight belt. Where that leaves Gilbert Burns, I don't know. It seems to me Bilal Muhammad's in a really weird spot. He's beaten the best competition out of any of these guys, and he's being left outside. They want him to fight Shavkat Rakhmonov, and I've mentioned before, there's no benefit for him doing that. Shavkat's a highly touted prospect. He's lower than him in the rankings. He doesn't have the win totals that Bilal has. If you win that fight, okay, but you go into it, say you beat him, are you going to get a title opportunity? I wouldn't trust Dana White in UFC. I wouldn't, because who says they're going to give you the benefit of the doubt? I just don't see it. So who knows? Also at UFC 287, let's see. Raul Rosas Jr., the 18-year-old prospect, in his second UFC fight, suffered his first loss. Lost via unanimous decision to Christian Rodriguez. Came out the first round like a bat out of hell, using all his energy, desperate to get a finish, but Christian Rodriguez, a 25-year-old who's young in his own right, a prospect, was so calm, cool, calm, and collected, was never worried about giving up a submission. Allowed Rojas to take his back, but he was perfectly comfortable. And at the end of that first round, Rojas was spent. He had nothing left. He couldn't get a choke in. And before you knew it, the next two rounds, Rodriguez controlled the fight. He got himself in position opportunities. He outstruck Rojas, and it was like a man taking on a boy, which Rojas is. He's 18 years old. I think this is actually a good thing for Rojas. He needed to be humbled. The UFC gave him a very tough opponent for his second UFC fight, and he lost. But he needs to work on his striking. He needs to work on his ability to set up and be much more clever and active in setting up submissions. He's just going for takedowns with no plan, it's just complete desperation. He needs to have constant motion to set that up. He doesn't. He hasn't in his fights. So he needs to work on a lot of things. But losing this fight does not kill the hype train. That opinion, to me, is way overstated. To me, that opinion is hot takery. It goes, well, this kid, he's not that good. We forget about him. No, that's not how I view this. He's a very good fighter. I think he will be. But at the same time, he took it on the chin. He took it on the chin, and now he has to bounce back, which he will. I believe he will. So he takes a lot. Christian Rodriguez looks better and better with every performance. He wants Cameron Simon, International Fight Week, July. Two really good prospects. I'd sign up for that fight. Simon's 2-0 in the UFC. Rodriguez said today in the MMA Hour he wants to kill the hype train, another hype train. So he could do that certainly with Simon, another South African fighter. So some possibilities there, certainly. Also on the card, Rob Font defeated Adrian Yanez via knockout. He was 6th in the rankings. He gets a win. I don't know if he'll jump Marlon Vera or not. Bantamweight, you got Sterling, who's fighting Cejudo beginning of May. O'Malley's waiting in the wings, likely for the winner. Merab Dvalishvili may fight Umar Nurmagomedov in the summer, so that would be a big fight. Pedro Munoz is fighting Chris Gutierrez this weekend. You have Ricky Simon's got a fight coming up with Song Yadong. Dominic Cruz does not have a fight yet. Dominic Cruz does not have a scheduled bout yet. He hasn't fought since last August. So he's looking for an opponent. Rob Font could possibly fight him. Petr Yan, Marlon Vera may end up scrapping. Sandhagen could fight Rob Font potentially. So there's options, certainly. But it was a fun night. It was a really a lot of good fights. Other news in the UFC. UFC 290, which is in July. It's the International Fight Week card. They announced that Yair Rodriguez will be fighting Alexander Volkanovski for the undisputed featherweight title. Yair is the current interim featherweight champion, defeating Josh Emmett. Volk was fighting Islam the same night, so these two will fight in July. Dana said there's no John Jones versus Stipe Miocic fight that's 100% confirmed yet, which sounds surprising, but not really when you're talking about John Jones. I think they'd love to have both fights on those cards. I think John Jones wants to fight on that card. So who knows where that's going. But Volk and Yair is a great fight. That'll be happening in July. Also announced, the UFC is returning to Canada. UFC 289 in June. Vancouver, British Columbia was going to be in Calgary. The Flames continue to be in the playoff hunt and screwed Calgary out of that. They're not going to make the playoffs, and they're not going to get the UFC. Tough couple weeks for the city of Calgary. But it goes to Vancouver, and it'll be headlined by Amanda Nunes versus Juliana Pena 3. Canada got screwed here. This is the main event for that card. Wah, wah. I've seen this fight twice. I believe Amanda Nunes is the better fighter. The Lioness. I'm fine with females headlining a card. I have no problem with it. But I don't really want to see this matchup again. And I don't want to spend big money to have this as my headliner fight, just being frank. I'd rather see Holly Holm versus Amanda Nunes. Irene Aldana would have been better. Caitlin Vieira. All would have been more interesting fights for me than Juliana Pena. But this also tells you about the state of the women's bantamweight division, where there just isn't a whole lot of interesting storylines currently for Amanda Nunes to fight people. In the women's strawweight, where Zhang Weili is the champion, Thug Rose is an interesting fight. Amanda Lemos, Jessica Andrade, obviously. Marina Rodriguez. You have Mackenzie Dern, Amanda Ribas, Tabitha Ricci, the Baby Shark. You have some interesting names, some interesting fights, some things that can happen. Flyweight, Grasso, new champion. You have Shevchenko, Tyler Santos, Aaron Blanchfield, Manal Farrow, all interesting. Caitlin Chuigan, Lauren Murphy, Jennifer Maya just won a big fight recently. Casey O'Neill lost a fight, but she's still interesting. Tracy Cortez. So you have names that will keep people entertained. Just fighting Amanda Nunes right now, there isn't a whole lot there. There isn't a whole lot of interesting names. And yes, the UFC is coming back. They're going to book a lot of Canadian fighters on this card. Jasmine Javadavakis is one that will be fighting on the card. So there'll be some Canadian content. I'm sure George St. Pierre will be in Vancouver. It'll be fun. Believe me, if I could go to this event, I would go because I love the UFC and it's in Canada. Never been to Vancouver. Saw a picture of Vancouver yesterday. The weather looks fantastic. I'm not saying the weather isn't good here today, but there's still snow. But for the UFC to come back and you get this as your main event, doesn't make you want to run to Rogers Place or Rogers Arena, whatever it is now. Just my thought, but it doesn't make you want to run there. But the UFC keeps chugging. Fight night event in Kansas City this coming weekend. Max Holloway, first fight since losing to Volk in their trilogy bout. He'll be going up against Arnold Allen. Huge featherweight fight. Looking forward to it. You also got Edson Barbosa, Billy Quarantino on the card. You got Pedro Munoz, Chris Gutierrez in the bantamweight division. Clay Guida, the veteran, the warrior. Also, you got Matias Nicolau, Brandon Royval at flyweight, which is an interesting fight. Don't know why it's not in the main card. So, you got some interesting fights this week. It's a good card. It's not a pay-per-view, but a good card nonetheless. So, solid weekend. Looks like another solid weekend coming up. We'll have another pay-per-view in less than a month. UFC 288 in Newark, New Jersey at the Prudential Center. Headlined by Aljamain Sterling and Henry Cejudo for the bantamweight title. Can't wait. The NBA regular season is over. It's finally over. The load managing, players sitting out, some important games, some not, some record-breaking performances. The Lakers slow start. The Lakers getting hot in the middle. Injuries. Luka Doncic, Giannis. It's over. We are headed to the postseason, but we did not leave the final weekend of the regular season without some drama. And let's go from chronological order when it started. Started Friday night in one of the most puzzling things that I've seen in recent memory. So Friday night, I'm hanging out with some friends, seeing my good friend, my brother, Dawson's new home, which congratulations to him and his lovely girlfriend, Janelle. Seeing their home, and I look at my other pal, Seamus, friend of the show, and it comes up my phone. It says the Dallas Mavericks are going to play Luka Doncic for the first quarter and then sit him out for the rest of the game and not play him in the other regular season game for the rest of the playoffs. This is for the rest of the regular season. So they're going to play him for the first quarter, and then he's going to sit out the next game and a half while they're still in playoff contention. Okay. I know myself some tanking, but normally when you're tanking, you come up with an injury. I got a bruised hip. Oh, I got my head or my eye, or I got an eye poke, or I clipped a nail, or just something happens. Something happens where you can't play the whole game. Just if you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound. Sit out the entire game. Don't play. Don't touch the court. Don't look at the court. Don't touch a basketball. Don't even look at Mark Cuban. Show up in your fancy get-up like Ben Simmons does when he sits on the bench. Shut up and pretend not to be alive. Or better yet, don't sit on the bench and pretend you have a serious injury, even though you're probably eating Five Guys down the road. So he plays the first quarter against the Chicago Bulls, and he doesn't play again. Well, the Dallas Mavericks lost the game. They were eliminated from playoff contention to play-in contention that night, and they lost the regular season finale, I think. I don't really know. It was a regular season finale. The game didn't matter. I don't give a shit. But that was the story. Luka not playing in a game that still matters. Kyrie also didn't play, and a bunch of other regulars, Tim Hardaway Jr. I will not understand the decision to play for a quarter. Ever. Don't play. Just don't play. It's not that hard. Just don't play. Don't play him. That's all you had to do. Don't let him touch the court at all. Come up with an injury. But you put him on the court, so now it looks even more strange. What are you doing? Dallas, what are you doing? Kyrie Irving is going to be a free agent. Luka Doncic says he's happy yesterday, but NBA players change their mind like... Who changes their mind? I have an idea in my head, but I'm going to keep that one to myself. He changes his mind on the snap of a finger. So who knows where the Mavericks are going? Is Jason Kidd going to remain in as head coach? Well, they haven't fired him yet. A couple of coaches are fired. Dwayne Casey fired, but also gets promoted, going to the front office with the Pistons. Not really a promotion. He was fired or let go in better terms, but he's going to the front office for a front office role, no longer the coach. Silas fired in Houston. He's gone after 3 seasons with no success, but they didn't spend any money either, so there's that. Does Jason Kidd get fired? He's a former Dallas Maverick. He won a championship there. Does Kyrie want to come back? Does he want to play with Luka? Who knows? All I know is it was a disaster down the stretch. Neither player plays defense. Luka Doncic is not in good physical condition, and it's clear, and I think it affects the team. He's a great player, but come on. The facts are the facts here. I don't know where the Mavericks go. I said last week to Seamus that I thought Kyrie would be back in Dallas because I don't see a place for him to go. The Lakers are not going to take Kyrie Irving. Even if they lose in the first round, they're not taking Kyrie Irving. They have a good team. I think they'll look at it and say the additions that we made are better than anything we can get from Kyrie. He's more injury prone than any player we have here. If LeBron and AD are healthy with these players, we'll be a playoff team. We'll be a top 4 seed next year. We don't need Kyrie. They may win the West this year. They may get to an NBA Finals. We have a lot to see, but they might, with or without Kyrie. So they're not going to pick him up. Kyrie, he's not going to the Clippers. They can't afford him, so he's not going to that LA team. He's not going to Sacramento, my Kings. De'Aaron Fox, the guard play they have there, and he's not going to choose to go to Sacramento. He's not going back to Brooklyn. Would he play for the Knicks? I don't think the Knicks want him. Because you may want to go somewhere, but the team also wants you. And I'm sure there's idiot teams out there that would take him, but he's got to want to go. Does he go to Philly if James Harden leaves the team? Possibility, I guess. Does Embiid want to play with Kyrie? I wouldn't want to. But again, I'm not an anti-Semite, so maybe Joel Embiid doesn't mind having that around. To each your own. I don't see him fitting in Philly. He's not going back to Brooklyn. He's not going to be a Raptor. He's not playing in Portland. Where's he going? He's almost forced into a corner to play for Dallas again. Dallas can pay him the most money. They give him a big supermax deal with Luka, and they try to piece it together. I don't think that team's winning a championship ever. 2 great players, but I know something with the NBA. When you get to the playoffs, you need to be able to defend. It's a fact. You need to be able to play defense. Welcome. And neither of them do it. And I don't see either of them changing their position or changing their approach to playing the game. So it's likely going to be the same thing. I don't know. But it was that trade. Brooklyn's going to make the playoffs. They're a 6th seed. They avoided the play-in. The Brooklyn Nets avoided the play-in after trading Kevin Durant, after trading Kyrie Irving. They deserve credit for that. And I like Brooklyn. Mikal Bridges, Spencer Dinwiddie, Cam Thomas, my guy, drops 40 anytime they put him on the court. Nick Claxton. They play hard, and I think they'll give Philly everything that they can handle in the first round. But kudos to Brooklyn after all that turmoil for getting into the playoffs and being in this position. They deserve props for that. Second piece of drama from the NBA. So it's about 5 p.m. yesterday. I'm watching the Masters. I'm flipping back and forth between some NBA games and some MLB games. And it comes to my attention that there was a scuffle between Minnesota Timberwolves teammates Rudy Gobert and Kyle Anderson. You see them on the sideline, and Gobert takes a swipe looking to punch Kyle Anderson, his teammate, last regular season game of the season. Gobert was then sent home at halftime. He tried to punch a teammate. You can't do that. Last regular season game, frustration bubbling over. Why this didn't happen earlier in the season, I will never know. But you got to remember, this is Rudy Gobert, who they traded everything for. Multiple first-round picks, really good players. Some of them are now on the Los Angeles Lakers. And the Timberwolves centerpiece with Anthony Edwards, Rudy Gobert, is now at home while the team wins their last game of the regular season, locks up the 8th seed in the West. But also during this kerfuffle, Jaden McDaniels picks up a second foul. He's walking down the hallway frustrated, punches a wall, fractures his hand. He's out for the season. Out for the season because he punches a wall. Chris Finch is the head coach of the Minnesota Timberwolves. I think he's a good coach. I think he's made that team relevant, kept them in contention for a number of years. They won that play-in game to make the playoffs. They got new ownership. They drafted Anthony Edwards. I thought they're on a decent trajectory, and then they decided to trade for Rudy Gobert, giving up everything in your mama for the big Frenchman. The trade didn't make sense, still doesn't make sense. I will never get it. But they made the trade, and they have to live with it. They must be sweating, seeing what that trade has gotten them, which is nothing. It's gotten them a big center who still can't score, who becomes a defensive liability in the postseason, and punches teammates. So through all of this, Minnesota, who made that trade, had big aspirations. They finish 8th in the Western Conference, which means they will play the Los Angeles Lakers tomorrow night in the 7 versus 8 playoff game. What this means is the winner of that game will be the 7th seed in the Western Conference. And the winner of that game will play the Memphis Grizzlies in the first round of the postseason. The loser will play the winner of New Orleans and Oklahoma City for the 8th spot, meaning Minnesota, if they beat the Lakers, they play Memphis. If they lose against the Lakers, they have to beat New Orleans or OKC just to make the playoffs. So they could trade for Gobert, 2 first-round picks, all kinds of stuff, Walker, Kessler, and it could ultimately be for not even making the playoffs. So beyond the horrible trade, they're 2 games over 500, completely dysfunctional team. Anthony Edwards I love, but had a down season, no doubt about it. Jaden McDaniels, he's their best three-point shooter. He's out for the postseason. And Rudy Gobert was suspended for tomorrow night's game by the team. They're not playing him. He's not traveling with the team to Los Angeles. So he's not playing. McDaniels isn't playing. They're not going to win the game. They're not beating the Lakers tomorrow. That game's done. That game was over with the full team for the Timberwolves. Now I'm not sure that they get into the postseason. They just seem like a broken club. Chris Finch is a good coach, but you got a bunch of personalities that clearly aren't meshing. And part of your job is to keep those people in order, to keep everybody sane. You can't have Gobert trying to punch Kyle Anderson. This isn't the first time Rudy Gobert's had a problem with teammates. If you recall, Rudy Gobert, the night the world blew up is when he was making fun of COVID and he was using the microphones, wiping down everything. And ultimately, he got COVID and he gave it to a bunch of his teammates, including Donovan Mitchell, and the relationship was never the same. It was awkward in Utah the next couple of years, and eventually he gets traded to Minnesota. Makes a ton of money for average production. I don't know. It's a disaster of a trade. It's been a disaster of a season. Not as big a disaster as Dallas, but damn close, because Dallas made the conference finals last year and they don't even make the play-in. So that is worse. But if Oklahoma City beats New Orleans tomorrow night, which I think they can, and then they somehow beat Minnesota and OKC makes the playoffs with a very young team without Chet Holmgren, who was the second overall pick in the draft on that team, woof. Woof, woof, woof. Minnesota's a mess. The Dallas Mavericks are a mess. I don't know where this goes in Minnesota. They may get into the playoffs, but if you lose in the first round in quick fashion, that doesn't look good either. That's not a good look. That's not something that you brag about. Oh, we made the playoffs. We got swept by the Denver Nuggets. Okay, you made the playoffs. What'd you do when you got there? Well, no, not much. Okay, well, we may have to look at things here. I don't think Chris Finch is the problem. Coaches don't always get the benefit of the doubt, as we know. Good luck to the Timberwolves. You'll need it against the Lakers because you're losing tomorrow night. The rest of the NBA playoffs are as follows. Denver's waiting the winner, or waiting they got to wait. Memphis will play either Minnesota or the Lakers, they just said. I think it'll be the Lakers. Sacramento, my Kings, will be hosting Golden State in the 3 versus 6 matchup. This is a ton of fun, this series. But I will tell you, I think this is a really good path for Golden State. They play Sacramento. If they get by them, they'll get Memphis or potentially the Lakers. I don't mind either series for them. They could get to a conference final without having to face Phoenix. 4 versus 5, Phoenix Suns have home court. They're playing the Los Angeles Clippers. Clippers will be without Paul George to begin the series. So, big loss there for the Clippers. They're a good team. Norman Powell's been stepping up. They have Batum. They do have depth. But Kawhi Leonard's going to have to be fantastic for the Clippers to win that series or even keep it competitive. In the East, Milwaukee is waiting on opponents. Boston will either play the Miami Heat or the Atlanta Hawks. That 7-8 game is tomorrow evening. The Philadelphia 76ers will play the Brooklyn Nets. As I mentioned earlier, Joel Embiid, the likely MVP against this upstart Brooklyn Nets team who've been battling all season long. And in the 4-5, you have the Cleveland Cavaliers against the New York Knicks. Cavs haven't made the playoffs since LeBron left the team. And the Knicks made the playoffs a few years ago. They lost in 5 to the Hawks. But the biggest storyline here is you got the Knicks who are trying to get to a second round, which would be huge. They do have a good team. But Donovan Mitchell could have been a New York Knick. They got Jalen Brunson, but they could have got Donovan Mitchell as well. They decided not to. Utah ultimately traded him to the Cleveland Cavaliers. The storyline at the end of the series, if Cleveland wins, will be the Knicks could have had Donovan Mitchell, and you didn't. You didn't pull the trigger. You didn't want to make that move, and Cleveland ultimately benefited. So far, and I don't think either the 1-8, 2-7s. My two favorite series are Sacramento and Golden State, and Cleveland and the Knicks. The Garden will be fun. The crowds in Cleveland are always energetic. They'll be happy to have playoff basketball back in Cleveland. The Cleveland Knicks, I think either team can win that series. Both teams are good at Brunson. If Julius Randle can come back healthy, that's a huge thing for the Knicks, obviously. For Boston, they'll get Atlanta or Miami. I think they'd much prefer to play the Atlanta Hawks. I do think they beat the Miami. No matter who they play, I think they beat them. But I think the Atlanta Hawks are a significantly easier series, less challenging, less tricky defensive options when it comes to guarding and things of that nature for the Boston Celtics. But the 7-8 games are tomorrow night. The 9-10 matchups are Wednesday. You have more play-in action Friday night. And the actual postseason begins Saturday afternoon. And so far, the playoffs itself begin Saturday. We've got Nets 76ers at 2 p.m. start. Knicks Cavs at 7. There'll be more games that day just with things happening with the play-ins and things of that nature. Different things will be sorted out, but interesting nonetheless. You have to look, you have to acknowledge the Boston Bruins and what they've done this year in the National Hockey League. 63 wins, the most wins in a single season, regular season history, topping the 95-96 Detroit Red Wings, the 2019 Tampa Bay Lightning, and the older Montreal Canadiens team. They have been dominant from pillar to post. They've never had any sort of huge adversity. They've had the best goaltending tandem in the league with Jeremy Swayman and Linus Ullmark. David Pastrnak has been a superstar player for them, getting another 4-point night last night, getting to 60 goals. So 2 60-goal men in the league currently, Pastrnak and Connor McDavid. He's only 4 back of McDavid. 2 games. He's not going to catch him, but a 60-goal season for Pasternak's pretty damn good. They clinched the President's Trophy seemingly like 3 weeks ago. They've been in cruise control since Christmas. They don't lose games. They seemingly get criticized when they win a game in overtime to Columbus. I don't care. They won the game. Bergeron, Marchand, Krejci, same core, but this team is different. Their work ethic, their ability, they don't give up. Adding Dmitry Orlov, adding Tyler Bertuzzi, Taylor Hall addition. This team has everything that you'd want. They play hard every night. They're physical. Go down the line. They're so dangerous. They win every night. They can beat you 6-5. They can beat you 2-1. It doesn't matter. But to get 63 wins in a single season, to have 51 wins in regulation of those 63, crazy. Crazy. And the more he plays, Pastrnak is going to get a nomination for the Hart Trophy. I just don't see a way he doesn't. I still think Draisaitl should, but I don't know. If Tkachuk makes the playoffs, he's got 108 points, Matthew Tkachuk. My God. This is going to be a tough year for Hart voting. McDavid's obviously going to win it. Who gets the next 2 slots? McKinnon easily could. McKinnon's got 107 points in 68 games. That's absurd. Absurd. He gets 39 goals last night, gets the OT winner. Colorado's back in first place in the Central. His running mate, Mikko Rantanen, has 100 points as well. He's got 54 goals on the season. Such a great winger. Well, we're up to 9 players with 100 points this season. Elias Pettersson has 99. Mitch Marner, Erik Karlsson have 98. Likely get 11 for sure. 2 games left. Jack Hughes has 96 points. I think he can get there. It's It's pretty incredible what's been accomplished this year. Zach Hyman of the Edmonton Oilers has 83 points, the same amount of points as Austin Matthews and Bill Nylander, his former running mates. Just to put that into context. It's wild. Tonight in the NHL, Panthers-Leafs. Panthers have 2 games left. They win. Actually, the Panthers win tonight and the Islanders lose in the nation's capital to the Washington Capitals. The Panthers are in. Alex Lyon is getting the start again, which he should. Good on Paul Maurice. He's 8-3-1 on the season. He's winning every start. You keep the hot hand. Pittsburgh plays tomorrow against Chicago, a crap team. But Islanders and Panthers are in action tonight. Sabres are in action as well. They are not technically eliminated, but they have to win tonight to stay alive. Carolina's got in Ottawa tonight. Carolina wants to get first in the Metropolitan, but they haven't locked that up yet. They got 3 games in the next 4 days. Stars and Wild both play tonight, battling for positioning in the Central Division. Predators at the Flames. Currently, as we stand, the Jets also play tonight. The Winnipeg Jets occupy the first wildcard position with 3 games left. They have 91 points. Calgary has 2 games remaining. They have 90 points. If Calgary loses tonight, Winnipeg wins in regulation. Calgary's eliminated. Nashville needs help, but they have 3 games left. They are 3 points back. They play Calgary tonight, so they'll beat an opponent. They win tonight. They have 2 games left. They win them. They hope for their best against Winnipeg. Winnipeg does play Colorado down the stretch here. You also got Vancouver at Los Angeles this evening. Los Angeles is hanging on to that 3rd Pacific spot, but they're losing a lot of games, and the Kraken are red hot. Kraken have won 6 of the last 7. They're scoring so many goals. Jared McCann's up to 40 on the season. They clinched a playoff spot in only their 2nd year in franchise history, and they're 2 points back of LA. They could still technically possibly play the Oilers in the first round, maybe get the Vegas Golden Knights if the Oilers catch the Golden Knights. So still lots of possibilities in the National Hockey League. Tracking the playoff teams right now is the interesting thing. In NCAA news, Quinnipiac won their first NCAA title, defeating Minnesota in overtime. Matthew Nyes is officially a Toronto Maple Leaf. No word yet if he's playing tonight. I assume he would, because this game, let's be honest, I said this for a couple weeks, and I mean it. It doesn't matter. It matters for Florida, it doesn't for Toronto. Anybody has another opinion, let's chat about it. I'll tell you why you're wrong. If you want to see if he can play him tonight. Play him in it. You just played in the Florida area. Yes, he lost the national championship, but now he's in the NHL. See if he can be any kind of a factor on the team. I have my doubts, but I've been wrong before. But I'd play him tonight, I'd play him tomorrow, and I'd play him on Thursday. Play him every night until the end of the season. See what he can do. See what he can bring to your team. Point blank. Also, Luke Hughes, formerly of the University of Michigan, brother of Jack and Quinn Hughes, signed his entry-level contract with the New Jersey Devils. Unclear what his role will be with the Devils. Devils are a good team. Their next game is tomorrow against New Jersey. I like the New Jersey Devils team. I don't know if there's a spot for him. He might be in the press box during the playoffs waiting for an opportunity. I don't see an easy slot for him. Because on the back end, Dougie Hamilton, my Norris Trophy winner, is playing. Obviously. Ryan Graves in the lineup. John Moreno, in the lineup. Jogan Siegenthaler, you better believe it, in the lineup. Damon Severson, probably in the lineup. I keep going through it here. Graves, yes. Hamilton, yes. Marino, Severson, Siegenthaler. Brendan Smith. You have Brendan Smith, Kevin Ball, Luke Hughes. I think he can possibly sneak in. I do. Brendan Smith played in playoff battles. He was in Carolina last year. So I think that would be the person for him to edge out. I would take my chances with Luke Hughes over Kevin Ball. Kevin Ball I just don't love the way he approaches the game. But so I don't think it's impossible for him. Unlikely, but definitely I do think it's a possibility for him to sneak in, possibly have an impact. We'll see. But again, unlikely when you have a team that's going to make the playoffs. That's very good, still fighting for top spot in their respective division. But we'll see how that goes. But some important games tonight. Play in tomorrow. Some baseball. It's the Blue Jays home opener tomorrow against the Detroit Tigers, which should be fun. The NFL draft is in a few weeks. So that's coming up. The NHL playoffs begins a week tonight. Also tonight you have the Saskatoon Blades against the Regina Pats. That's Connor Bedard in a Game 7 of his first-round playoff series. He's got 19 points in 6 games. Does his junior career continue or does it end tonight? We shall see. It's been fantastic. They kept him because they wanted to sell tickets. They're on the road tonight. They want to keep selling those tickets in Regina. They need him to pull it off. Also in the queue tonight, Moncton Wildcats against Bay Comeau-Drakkar. Game 6, Moncton can close out the series. I believe if they win the series, they will play Halifax in the next round, which would be fun. So, fun show. Lot covered. Tomorrow, me and Seamus will be breaking down the NBA playoffs, getting more in depth on different situations around the league. We'll preview each series, who to look out for, things of that nature. Get his thoughts on Matthew Nyes, the prodigy, ending up in Toronto, and lots of other different thoughts. So that'll be tomorrow on the program. Until then, take care. Have a great night, everybody. This is To The Point.